I'm Travis Merrill, and for my third video, I want to talk to you about a framework for making musical decisions that I call the 4 variables. Now, as I started learning a lot more about technique, I realized that I had all this information about how to control all these different aspects of my playing, but I didn't have a great way to apply those things to the music that I was working on. And this is the way that I came out with for myself so that I could make musical decisions with my technical tools that I have available. So I call this framework the 4 variables, and the 4 variables that I'm referencing are bow weight, bow speed, contact point, and vibrato. And all of those things are our main tools that we have to change our sound on the viola, right? There are a couple other things that we can use that are important, but not quite as important as those 4 main ones. And the way this practice works is very simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a phrase that I'm working on, and this works best in any kind of lyrical phrase, and I'm going to play through the phrase, and each time I'm going to let one of those variables really lead my phrase shaping. And that means that I have to have an idea of how I want to shape the phrase. And actually, a lot of times, this is one of the best things about this practice, is that it forces you to really clarify how you want to shape a phrase, because you're not going to be able to change your sound, you're not going to be able to make these technical decisions if you haven't already made these decisions. So sometimes this practice for me is actually about making sure I have a clear idea of my phrase shapes. So I'm going to play a little excerpt, and I'm going to start off really focusing on my sound point. I'm going to change my sound point depending on how I hear the phrase increasing in intensity or decreasing. So if it increases in intensity, I'm going to move my bow closer to the bridge. Decreases, I'm going to move away. Now, the other variables are going to happen to a certain extent as well, but I'm letting them sort of take a back seat. The contact point is going to be the driver, and I'm going to really focus on doing everything I can to make those changes obvious with my sound point. Just have time for a tiny excerpt. So I moved my bow closer to the bridge when I wanted more intensity, moved it away when I wanted less. And you can see that even changed within one note. So next, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to do bow speed. So I'm going to increase the speed of my bow if I think the phrase is increasing in intensity or getting louder. Do the opposite if it's decreasing. So you can hear, hopefully, that the bow speed driven sound has a very different quality to it or color than the contact point does. And for me, this is one of the real values of this kind of practice, is that I get this whole range of different sounds, and I get to make choices about which one I like the best for whatever phrase I'm playing. So there's the bow speed one. I'm going to do now vibrato. So I'll change the intensity of my vibrato to match the intensity of the part of the phrase that I'm playing. Again, hopefully different kind of sound. The one that I saved for last is weight, and I saved that one for last just because my habit is usually to lead with that. And for me, part of this practice is getting out of my, not just my comfort zone, but my default box of like, okay, I'm gonna use more weight or use less weight. So I'm gonna get out of this weight-driven sound by doing those other 3 variables first, and I'll save weight for the end. Weight and contact point are really closely related, so I have to change my contact point if I want to use more weight, but I can also stay on one contact point and use more or less weight. In any case, I'm going to play it once and really focus on seeing what I can do with weight to shape the intensity of this phrase. Different kind of sound too, different quality. After I've done that with a phrase, played it through 4 times, I'll then ask myself, if there was one of those that really stood out, and write that in my music. Or sometimes what will happen is I'll like different aspects of each one for particular parts of the phrase, and I'll take note of that. Sometimes I won't do either of those things. I'll just play and I'll go for the sound in my head. And because I've done all this work where I've practiced with these different variables leading, I'm then able to play with much more tonal freedom, because I can just go for the sound in my head and my hands will know what to do to make that kind of sound. So that's a really valuable part of this practice. It's also really valuable for learning how to really make your phrase shapes clear, because you're not going to be able to use your technical tools to make those phrase shapes clear unless you've already decided what those shapes should be. If all of this seems like a whole lot, I would recommend starting off just playing open strings, or for vibrato, left hand only, so you can take some time to master, okay, I'm really just going to focus on my contact point, okay, I'm really just going to focus on my speed, weight, and then practice just with the left hand by itself to see if you can actually change your vibrato to reflect the phrasing that you want in your playing. So give that a try on a lyrical phrase, and if you like, let me know in the comments how it's worked out for you. Thanks.